All right, welcome everyone to our Connecting the Dots Business Integration Basics webinar. I am Rachel Anderson, the CMO over here at Virtual PBX, and one of the areas that I help manage is our team's systems and automations. That's including workflows based on our own call and text traffic. That's a particular point of pride over here at Virtual PBX, that we use our own tools and services to manage our business. And webhooks are a major piece of that puzzle. Today, I'll take you through 3 common examples, including triggers that we use in our very own use cases, and that are available right now today in your account. We'll also save time at the end to answer any questions that you may have. And to submit your questions in advance, please add it just right inside the YouTube chat box. But first, what is a webhook? A webhook is a method of allowing one application to send real-time data to another application. It's a way for systems to communicate with each other. Webhooks are typically used to trigger events in response to specific actions or changes in the source application. What can a webhook do? A webhook can do a lot of things. For example, a webhook can send notifications, it can trigger workflows, send communications, log data for reports, update contact records, customize data handling, and quite a lot more. How are they managed? There's really 2 ways that webhooks are managed. The first is much more common, and that's through integration services like Zapier, IFTTT, if this then that, Make, and Workato. They all provide an interface where you can build and test your integrations, set them live, and keep a log of events. Today, we're going to be using Zapier as our integration service provider. The much less common way that webhooks can be managed is through a direct connection. So some applications will provide a way to plug in your data directly. Again, the option is much less common, and it really does often lack the ability to customize your workflows. How that will look is, and this is typically in something like your CRM, ticketing service, project management service, where within their integration options, they'll just give you an area where you can plug in a webhook URL, and then they manage what happens with that data entirely. Again, this option really does lack the ability to customize your workflows, and it is much less common. Today, we're going to go through 3 examples. The first, call center agent status notifications. For that, we're going to be using Virtual PBX webhooks, and then we're going to send the notification to Slack. You may have other tools that you use for your company's communications. Zapier, as well as these other examples that I provided, have thousands of applications that are available for you to send notifications to. Today, we're just going to be using Slack. The second, creating follow-up tasks for voicemails. Again, here we're going to use Virtual PBX webhooks. We're going to use Airtable as the tool to manage those tasks. And last, logging customer text messages to your CRM. For that, we're going to be using Virtual Text Forward, and then we're going to be using the Pipedrive CRM. So let's get into our first example. So again, the first example, we're going to be sending the call center agent status as a notification to Slack. All of these examples are going to start the exact same way, with our trigger being webhooks. The event for webhooks is going to be to catch the hook. So fair enough, think of this like baseball, where here we're waiting to catch the ball. The ball has all the information that we need in order to continue our zap. But first, we just need to capture that information in our trigger. Go ahead and hit continue. Very rarely will you need to pick off a child key. By default, you're going to get all of the information from Virtual PBX into your webhook. This is really if you want to limit the information that you get. In today's use case, we don't need to limit that information, so we're going to go ahead and hit continue. Now we're given a URL. This URL is where we're going to send information to from Virtual PBX. So go ahead and copy that URL, and then we're gonna plug that into Virtual PBX webhooks. Inside of your Virtual PBX account, it should look something quite a lot like this. In the hamburger drop-down menu, go ahead and choose webhooks, and then we'll create a new webhook. Make sure to give it a descriptive name. Today we'll just use webinar example agent status. We're going to choose our trigger event. As you can see, there are quite a lot of trigger events to choose from. In this example, we're concerned about agent status. And as you can see, there are a few options related to that. We could, for example, only send a notification when an agent joins their queue, leaves their queue, marks themselves as away. But in this example, we want to capture every single status change. So we're going to use the cubicle recipient status change to capture all of those. Plug in that URL that we took from Zapier, and then go ahead and save this, and we'll hop back into Zapier. So we've already tested this information, and as you can see, you get an example. This is maybe one of my favorite parts about using Zapier. You're using real data. And my number one suggestion when helping a team member create their first webhook automation is use real life test information that's going to match your use case. In this example, it's pretty straightforward. We're just sending a notification to Slack. But if, for example, you only wanted to create an automation based on certain information happening, use that as your test data. As soon as you create the webhook inside of the Virtual PBX webhooks feature, go ahead and, in this example, have an agent change their status. In this example, our team member, Linda Eustace, has marked herself as away. That's perfect. That's the information that we need. If this wasn't a recent event, and you can use that data as you build. In this case, we have exactly what we need. We just wanted to know the agent and the status that they've changed to. Next, we're going to create an action step. Again, we're going to send a notification to Slack. So we've chosen Slack as our application, logged it in, and we're going to send a channel message. Most applications will have a variety of options for you. If, for example, I only wanted to send this status notification to a manager, I could choose to send a direct message, a private channel message, but I'm going to send this just to a public channel. So send channel message is the action I'm going to choose. And then here we can configure that. This view right here is always where you're going to be able to customize the information, customize the automation. In this case, I want to send the message to our marketing channel. So I've chosen the marketing channel from all of the options inside of Slack. Next, I'm going to write my message. And there's actually kind of 3 different bits of information here that represent the different ways that you can take information from your automation, take advantage of the tagging features, in this case for Slack, and then pull that all together. So we're using @here, that's a Slack feature, in order to notify everyone that's currently available. Next, we're going to say that here, insert person, their queue status has changed to, and then their current status. So we're pulling the name of our agent from this insert data option. We can see that here. All of the information that came over from the webhook is available. We only really want to use the agent's name and their current status. So we've typed that out, and then we included a little bit of a description as well. So @here, Linda Eustace, queue status as a bot. If you, in Slack and in a lot of other tools as well, they give you this option to send as a bot, or by default, it'll come from you. I don't want this message to come across just from me. I want this to come from a bot, so I'm gonna say yes. I've named the bot agent status. I've given the bot a nice icon. If you choose yes, at the end of your message, you'll see a link directly to this automation that we've created. That can be helpful if everyone in your audience has access to that, if you need it for troubleshooting, but generally I recommend not to include it. Whoever is building your automations will know how to get to that and check out the history if needed. That's about all we need. So we tested this. So I'll just show you what that looks like. Just like we thought, at here, Linda Eustace Q status changed to away. If I decided, you know what, I want to word that a little differently, you can always go back to your action. And let's say Linda Eustace has changed their Q status to away. Let's just reword that slightly. You can always retest and retest until you get it just like you like it. So we're going to retest that, head back over here, and then right away, there's our message. But we're going to head to our next example. In our second example, and this is actually one kind of similar to what our customer service team uses, we're going to send voicemails and create a task inside of a task management tool to follow up with them. Again, just like our previous app and the next one, they're all going to have the very first same step, which is catching the webhook. So we've caught the webhook. We're continuing on to our trigger, continue again, and there we have our URL. Let's go plug that into Virtual PBX. Now this one's a little bit different. Again, we've chosen the name, we've entered the URL for our Zap, but as you'll see here under Trigger Event, we've chosen Notification Webhook. This list right here is not really all of the webhook options that you have from Virtual PBX, because underneath Notifications Webhook, we have quite a few notification options for you. So again, in this event, we're going to choose the Trigger Event Notifications Webhook. Then we're going to go down to the type, and we're going to choose what notification we want to see. As you can tell, quite a lot of options for notifications that may work really well for your business. Missed call would be another perfect one to create a task for follow-up afterwards. But again, we're going to do the new voicemail message as our trigger for today. So choose that, create your webhook, and then we'll head back into Zapier. We're gonna do something a little different here. So we've got our record. It has everything that we need. In this case, we want our caller ID was, who they sent that message to, what phone number they called. And we also want the transcription of that voicemail. So after a quick scroll through here, we can tell we have everything that we need to continue. So we're gonna go ahead and continue with that selected record. And we're going to do something a little different than our previous app. So in the previous automation, we wanted every single agent status notification to come through. In this case, that happens on our account to create this task. So for example, I don't want to know all the voicemails that individuals are getting. I don't even want to know the voicemails that sales is getting. I only want one particular phone number, those voicemails. So I'm going to set up a filter so that I only create tasks for the events that I want to see. So for that, you're going to choose Filter by Zapier. Go ahead that we used. We're going to be able to use the information from that test payload in order to create our filter. Once again, I highly recommend for the test data that you're using, make sure the test data matches your use case. In my use case, I want to know all of the voicemails that happened when somebody called our main company number. So for that, I'm going to look for who received that voicemail. As you scroll through, perfect, there we can see it. That's the user, that's our main phone number. So I want to use this as our, and I want to know when that contains our main phone number. This is our main phone number here. I'm going to go ahead and hit continue, and perfect. I used the real life data that we wanted to see so that our Zap would have continued with our test data. That's perfect. We're going to hit continue. Next, we're going to create that task. So we've chosen Airtable as the tool to, We want to create a new record. So we've chosen the event create record and we're hitting continue about that particular setup. This is a good example of a scenario where if it does not already exist yet, you'll definitely need to set it up inside of your application first so that it's bringing in the fields that we want to use. In this case, we want some notes, we want to be able to assign it to a person, and then we also want to track the status. So that we need, now we can fill in the information. I've decided that the name of the task should be that we received a voicemail from, and then whomever that caller ID was. In this case, we used a test person for our caller ID. We also want to bring, here is a perfect example. We don't really need to preface this by saying voicemail transcript. We already know it's a voicemail. So we just decided to include that little bit of extra information, but if you don't need it, you can certainly always remove it. And we've chosen here that voicemail transcript. We've typed her name in, and then the status is to do. Again, this was set up first inside of Airtable so that we knew that we had exactly every field that we needed before we decided to continue. Because we have that, we filled in the information that we need. Let's go ahead and hit continue and then hop into our Airtable, and there it is. So here we can see, just like we set it up, the name is voicemail from, test person, voicemail transcript. Hello, I'm looking for the sales department. If you could please call me back. Just like the previous app though, if you ever wanted to update it, in this case, we updated the notes to remove the preface information and only including the transcript. You can always retest the step. And most of these are going to be pretty immediate. So if we hop back in, there it is. Now we can see it without the words voicemail transcript. Once it looks just like you want it to, you can go ahead and hit publish and turn it on. But we've got one more example for you. And this one's a little bit different. Next, we're going to send incoming text messages to the CRM. Instead of using the webhooks feature inside of Virtual PBX, we're going to be using Virtual Text Forward. So inside your account, Virtual Text Forward, you're able to choose a number. You can decide to send these notifications to email or a webhook. In this case, we want to use a webhook, so we've added that in there, we've saved our changes, and now we're ready to get to work inside of Zapier. So here, again, our first step is always to catch that webhook, make sure it has what we need. And again, this is another perfect example of make sure to test with information that you're actually going to use. In my case, I wanted to send the text message to the actual contact inside of our CRM. So of course, I need to use test data that matches a contact in our CRM. I've chosen my own Virtual PBX phone number for this. I have an example person inside of Pipedrive, our CRM. So I know I have all the information that I need. I have who the call went to, or sorry, who the text message was to, who it was from, the body of the text message. That's all the information that I want. So I'm ready to go ahead and continue with that selected record. And now I want to find the person. So again, in this CRM, so I should be able to find them if I search by the caller ID. So we're going to go ahead and continue through. In our action step, we're going to be searching for that contact by their caller ID. Let's get that thing to load for you guys. Let's give it a little refresh. All right, so we're going to search for them by their phone. Now, all of these, and this is really similar to any CRM that you're going to want to use, they'll typically give you a few fields that you can search by. Again, here we're seeing those. So we could search for their ID, we could search for their email is an option, we could search for their phone number. In this case, we want to search for them by their phone number because we have their caller ID. So we're going to choose phone. we'll be entering that phone from the caller ID that we have in our text message. Again, we already verified, yep, this is the number that we want to test with. We do want to search for an exact match. I highly recommend, if you are managing phone numbers, search for an exact match. There's a good use case for doing fuzzy matches on things outside of IDs, phones, email addresses, but you should really treat your phones, your email addresses, and especially IDs as IDs. They need to be exact, otherwise it may not attach to the right person. So phone, that's our caller ID. We want to search for an exact match, and it depends on your scenario. Should the step be considered a success when nothing is found? So if we're looking for this phone number and it doesn't exist on any person inside of our CRM, should this zap continue? In this case, because we want to attach it to a specific person, no, the step should not be considered a success. One example where this step should be considered a success if nothing is found is, for example, if we wanted to create a follow-up task. Just because we don't have that person's information inside of our CRM in our previous example doesn't mean that we don't want to create a task when a voicemail is left from them. So again, it really depends on your scenario, but in our scenario, no, the step should not be considered a success if we don't find anything. Go ahead and hit continue, and again, we're going to test. So we've tested this, and here you can see that the Zap search was found true. It found my test user, Rachel Anderson, with that email, and we have that phone number in there as well. So we have everything that we need to continue. And in our next step, we're just going to create a note on that person with the text message that they sent so that we have the history noted inside of our Pipedrive CRM. So we're again choosing the Pipedrive application for our app. The event is to create a note. We've already logged in. And here we're putting in our content, and then we're able to choose where that note goes next. So again, first, we're using a combination of typing in to have text message received, preface the note so we know exactly what we're looking at, and then in our first step, in as well. When we searched for that find person in Pipedrive, and you'll see this now, we have two places that we can choose to pull information from. Under Find Person in Pipedrive, when we found that person by their caller ID, it pulls up all the information that we have about that person. This is a really critical moment to think through your order of operations. So now that we know that about them in the note, we certainly could. We'd be able to pull in any of these fields that we have here. In this case, we only want to attach that note to that person. So we're looking for their ID, these numbers here. If you kind of hover on there, it'll usually give you a tooltip to see what it's looking for. But another great way of knowing exactly what it's trying to do is if at first it's showing you a person step and it's giving you the numbers here, well, now I can tell it's looking for those people's ID. So I have their ID from a previous step. I'm choosing custom, picking that previous step, and then I'm searching for their ID underneath that. Here we have it right here, so we're going to choose that. And here I could also decide, all right, this is a recent text message. If it's really important in Pipedrive, then yes, I want to pin that note on the specified person. I could also attach it to an organization or to a lead in Pipedrive, but in my use case, I just want to attach it to the person for the history there. I'm going to go ahead and hit continue. I've tested webhooks message received, perfect, looks great. But if you recall, so in my action step, I chose to pin it. I want to test it and make sure that works. So I'm going to retest my step, head back into Pipedrive. I have a new note now and it's pinned at the top. Perfect. I've got everything I need for that one. Once again, once your Zap looks good, you can go ahead, turn it on, publish that thing, and you're good to go. So those 3 common examples, again, are in some way, shape, or form in use by the team over here at Virtual PBX. Again, you're able to manipulate that to match exactly what you need, but those are available right now today inside of your account. So now that we've gotten through those examples, I'm going to take a couple of questions here. I've got a few preloaded, so I'll start with those. Let's see. Do I need to register my business to use virtual text forward? This is a really good question. If you guys have been tuning into our webinars recently, we've been talking a lot about text messaging, and registration is a requirement to send text messages in North America. Again, to send text messages. Virtual text forward is for receiving messages. So you do not need to register. The option is separate from our virtual text standard and pro options because, again, it does not include the ability to send messages. This option is already included for free if you're a Flex, Pro, or Premier customer of ours. On our starter plan, it's $5 per month in order to, again, just be receiving the messages that you're getting. In particular, we find this use case helpful for our customers who maybe haven't decided to go all in on text messaging yet, but they want to see if they're receiving text messages from their customers today. So no, you do not need to register your business. How do you check for errors? So I'm really familiar with Zapier. That's the tool that we use the most at the company. And if your Zap errors, you'll get an email notification right away. But you can also check all of your logged activity at any time. So if you recall back to the Zap where it included the link below, one of the reasons I don't think that that's too helpful for most businesses is, again, because if you're managing that automation, you have access to exactly where it failed. It'll help you troubleshoot that. So yes, you are able to see errors. You don't have to check for that manually. You should get a notification. The notification settings might differ a little bit depending on the automation provider you're using, but Zapier will send you an email right away. Can my webhook only connect with one other application? No, and that's actually our last example was a good one to show that it's not even just one trigger and one action. You can really expand that. I wouldn't go too crazy, but yes, you can connect to more than one application. You can also do, like in our last example, more than one event per application. So just to expand on that, we could create a deal in the Pipedrive CRM, add a follow-up task, send an alert to Slack. You could do quite a list of things, but I definitely not go too crazy. You want to keep it realistic. And again, this came up in our last Zap, but as you add steps in your automation, the information from the previous step will become available. So for example, your Slack notification could now also include a link to the task inside of Pipedrive. So you definitely want to think through order of operations if you're going to be integrating with more than one application or you're going to be having more than one action step per application. I hope that makes sense. Let's see. It looks like that was our last question for now. But of course, if you have any other questions, please feel free to call or text our team. That's our main number there. As you know, we also included that in our automation, so we make sure to capture every single conversation or text happening there. You can check out our website, virtualpbx.com. Our sales team is also really good at helping to provide solutions like these webhooks, so you can email them at sales@virtualpbx.com. And again, thank you all for attending today for our webhooks webinar. Please reach out with any questions that you have, and we're excited to help make your business better.